Well, that was incredibly odd, and I apologize. I hit go live. It went live, and I thought I was live. So I think I just talked to myself for, well, I don't know, 40 minutes and did an entire show and was getting ready to turn it off. And it said go live. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. What happened? So, technology, whatever. Got all these cyber attacks going on. Who knows what the hell's going on? I mean, I was literally responding to the chat. Like people were talking about Christian Wilkins and Frank Louvu and Bryce Huff. And I mean, all of these options. And I thought that we were having a conversation, but I guess not. So we're here. Welcome to Rocked On Detroit Lions free agency. Tag deadline has closed, and we're going to wrap it up today with talking about it just a little bit. The biggest news that really was closing out free agency, and again, I apologize, guys, and especially for those that probably jumped out and got sick of waiting. The biggest news that hit the back end of the tag deadline was Jalen Johnson. And that one was, the one that kind of crushed me a little bit because I do not want Jalen Johnson to be a Bear in 24. I really don't. If he's not a Lion, I did not want him to be a Bear. So he's stuck in Chicago, at least for the moment. Yes, there's always the potential of a tag and trade, but I don't see. Look, I see the Bears getting really good this year, like really good. They will be the second best team in the NFC North, and they will probably be, dare I say, a top 5 team in the NFC in 2024. Just based on, if Ryan Poles hits on his picks, that's what I see. And that's why I did not want to see Johnson stay a Bear in 2024. But it is what it is. For right now, he is. So let's talk about some of the players that got wrapped up today and some that are available. We know that Josh Allen is locked up, Justin Madubuike, Jalen Johnson, Brian Burns. One that was kind of on but off the radar, Michael Pittman. So we know that the Lions need another receiver. I doubt that they would have went to this, degree of getting, a Michael Pittman type or style in somebody that definitely is going to cost pretty bag. But the Colts locked him up, so it's a done deal anyway. And then you have Antoine Winfield. So we know the Lions are looking for a safety, whether that's C.J. Gardner-Johnson coming back, hopefully on a sweetheart deal, or they're going to be looking at the waiver wires, the free agency wires. Everything. They're going to be looking for somebody, and free agency starts next week. So Antoine Winfield, Tampa Bay locked him up, and Kyle Duggar was the next one, safety for the Patriots. Again, we need safety help. We've only got a few guys back there, and it's pretty bleak. Just about everywhere in that defensive line. So L'Jarius Sneed, obviously we know that he was tagged, but he kind of has that out, right? He has the tag and trade deal that is currently in play. And at this point, we just don't know what direction it's going to go. I'll recap it one more time that according to the talk at Indy during the combine, the Lions are one of the teams looking for a top tier corner. And that's going to be through free agency. Who's available? We know that Christian Wilkins is probably the best defensive tackle right now that is available. I can't believe I just went over all of this by myself. That is hilarious. Man, I have to call my doctor. I'm like, dude, I'm talking to myself here. He's like, what's going on? All right. So Christian Wilkins, he's pegged to have like a $25 million APY. And what that means is $25 million per year. 4-year, $67.5 million deal, or I'm sorry, 4-year, $100 million deal, $67.5 million guaranteed is what's being projected. At age 28, he would be about 32, just over 32 years old when his deal is done. It's probably a little bit too much money for Christian Wilkins at $25 million a year, but we know that Miami's not going to be able to get anything done with him. So who's going to be able to pay this guy? That's the biggest question. Who's going to be able to pay him, and why not the Detroit Lions? Xavier McKinney. So again, talking about safety help. Yeah, Danielle Hunter is still available. Talking about safety help. Xavier McKinney is one that excites me a lot. And, he's kind of been, on the side eye, like the backup. If Jalen Johnson wasn't going to be there, who could the Lions add? Again, if CJ Gardner's not coming, if Jalen Johnson is not coming back or coming to the team, what about a guy like Xavier McKinney? And he has an interesting set of stats. We can get him pulled up here. 1 second. All right. So Xavier McKinney. All right. You guys can see that okay? Make it a little bigger. So pretty productive guy. What jumps off the page at me in 2023 is 94 solo tackles. Dude was busy. 3 interceptions. He was targeted 54 times. Only allowed 33 receptions. Overall player grade 87.8. Run defense grade 70.5. Coverage grade 91.2. I don't worry about the pass rush grade. Here's what stands out. The run defense grade. We know that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have said it time and time again that you are not going to play for the Detroit Lions if you are not a tackler. And in the fact that he's good against the run defense, and he's a darn good tackler, tells me that he has a pretty good, opportunity to become a Detroit Lion. Oh, Cake Man, I know you don't want to see it or hear it, but I think that's what's going to happen. 25 mil, 10% of the team's cap. What do you think's going to happen with Amon-Ra St. Brown? He's about to ink a $26 million deal apparently. And I'll talk more about that on Thursday morning. I was going to do it tonight, but I can't find 26 million reasons right now. I really can't. So anyway, Xavier McKinney, solo tackles 94, assist 21, 1 forced fumble, 26 stops, and only missed 7 tackles on the season, 3 picks, passer rating allowed 52.1. When you look back at last season's passer rating allowed for the Lions, it was god awful. Just about everybody was north of 100. With the exception, I think, of it might have been CJ Gardner, but that's only because he only played in a handful of games. So it was god awful. Our back end was letting up just about everything. So to have a guy come in, like this with his experience, number one, number two, he's got prototypical size, 6 foot, 201 pounds, played for Alabama. Now he's looking at a second contract. So he was drafted in 2020 and he's looking at a second contract. So what's that going to be worth? Well, that's what we're going to find out. I got to switch screens here. All right. So we'll share this tab. So Xavier McKinney is valued at about $13.5 million a year right now. And I know that it says APY of 2 point whatever million, but if I were to switch this to Spotrac, oh, there you go, 10.4 million. So when I look at this number and I think, okay, CJ Gardner-Johnson, is he going to come back, on a sweetheart deal, $6 million a year or less? Excuse me. Or is he looking to get a 2-year deal, $8 million a year or $10 million a year, I think that's too much money for CJ Gardner. I'd rather have a bigger body, someone just a little bit younger, and someone that you can give a 4-year deal to that has the experience as a strong safety, is played exceptionally well, has great grades, is good in the run game, not afraid to come up in the box. And I think that Xavier McKinney fits all that. I really do. So $10.4 million average annual salary. You could get him, on a 5-year, $50 million deal, maybe a 4-year, $43 million deal or whatever. I think it's a great option. So keep your eyes out for any news on Xavier McKinney. Next bit of news here, next topic at least. If I can get my screens moved around, is the free agency rankings, and then who's kind of left on this list, like who's out there. The Lions are looking for offensive line help, and I know that they're pretty set at right tackle with Penei Sewell, but we don't have a lot of backup. And can some of these tackles that are out there become guards? That's the biggest question. Man, I'm struggling today. Too much talking going on today. So, offensive lineman Mike Owenu is not going to be tagged, and he will be a free agent. And the Lions definitely could use a really good tackle. I just think that he's probably going to cost a little bit too much money, and I'm not real sure on, is he going to be willing to take a smaller deal? Is he going to be willing to move inside and play guard? So probably not. The Lions are also looking for tight end help. I know that we just re-signed Shane Zielstra. Let me get this off the screen. I know that we just signed Shane Zielstra, but look, he's not the end all be all. He's coming off a nasty injury. He's got a lot, to prove and to come back from, quite honestly. So I would say that the Lions are still in the hunt for another blocking tight end, and even someone that could be a pass catcher too. Brock Wright has always been good, when the ball's thrown to him. He's been exceptional in the blocking game. So we have our pass catcher with Sam Laporta. I think the Lions are going to be looking for, another blocking tight end that can catch the ball when needed. And I would not be surprised if they do take a tight end in the draft. And that way, they're set, for 4 or 5 years, they'll be good to go. Or at least 4 years. So tight end Hayden Hurst has been released. He is someone that I do believe could be a nice option. But again, the Lions could be looking to sign, somebody like a Zach Ertz, on a cheaper, 1, maybe 2-year deal. I'm not real sure how much, he's going to be looking, to make long term. But I think Zach Ertz, even though he's a little bit older, could be, a nice fit. Question here by, looks like Gaviscon. It says, how does the salary cap work in the NFL? Is there any minimum cap can you save for the next year? That's kind of a twisted question because it's kind of gone back and forth. So last I knew, teams had to spend 90% of the cap every year. And then I read something earlier this season that you could save, a portion of it and roll it over to the next season. You just have to let the NFL know ahead of time that's what your plans are. So I guess it's kind of a yes answer to that question. You can roll money over to the next season. But I think that the rule is still that you have to spend 90% of it. Could be wrong. But that's the last that I knew. Southwest Line 26 says, even with the higher cap, if you want to keep your core, hard to do if everybody's getting max or near max salaries. That's true, at least in the long term. So to kind of answer that or talk about it just a little bit, I think that, and we've done the exercise live together. I've signed, Goff, Brown, Sewell, and Aleem McNeil all this year to extensions. And I paid them pretty close to max deals. I want to say, I was one of the first ones to say that Goff was, a 4-year, $190 million guy as far as an extension goes. And I've also said that there could be a three-year option that would be closer to $50 million. Either one can be done. And so can a $25 million, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a $22 million, 23 for Penei Sewell, and, probably in the neighborhood of 14, 15 million for Aleem McNeil. They're all going to be backloaded. And I think that when you do these deals, even with some void years, the players and the franchise knows they're going to end up restructuring these deals anyway. That's the whole thought process. It'll be cheap in 24. If you sign 4 of them, extend 4 of them this year, 2 of them will probably have some pretty big numbers in 25, and then 2 of them will have some pretty big numbers in 26, but all of them will probably have zero guaranteed money come 27. So they'll be looking to either restructure some of them after 26 and or end up moving off of some of these players at some point. I mean, you can't keep everybody forever. You just can't. It doesn't work that way. But they can all get done. And even when I did the full, roster, extension, you still have about $50-60 million left over, just by the way that the cap works and giving everybody big signing bonuses with, void years, you could still have every bit of your cap space just about doing it that way. So it can all get done. It's just, if you're giving everybody 4-year deals, that 3rd year is really going to hurt. But you're also expecting like what you've seen this year. The cap goes up, was supposed to be 23 million, goes up 30. And even if it only went up the projected amount, which was 10%, then you're expecting, another 30 million next year, and then 35 or whatever million the year after that. That's going to, help cover some of that. And then with all the incoming rookies, to keep that cap low, it kind of balances out. So there's definitely a true number of how many guys you can have on one roster that can have a max contract. And, maybe we'll put together that roster roulette finally one day and figure it out. Definitely glad they're not Denver at this point. They're paying $80+ million to watch Russell Wilson go play for a team at the vet minimum. That's completely asinine. So, yeah, there's that. All right, so let me pull this list out here. Let's see who's left. So if we're talking free agents, top free agents that are left in the NFL, here's what we got. Obviously, Christian Wilkins is my top pick at defensive tackle. I don't see any of these franchise tag guys coming available. I think that it is what it is. It's going to get done. The only one is Snead. But I think Christian Wilkins is probably the only one that makes sense. But money-wise, it's going to be tough. I mean, I would tell you that I do not feel that Aleem McNeil is elite. I think he's good. I don't think he's elite. He's not a pocket pusher. We need somebody that, can push the pocket, but also get to the quarterback. And if you even believe in a little bit of what I do, and that's the path on the defense to the quarterback has always been your strong side defensive tackle. And if your strong side defensive tackle can break that chain, right? Just that one link in the chain between the center and the guard, the rest of the line can start to work its magic. So we had great success with Ndamukong Suh, and that's because he's your strong side defensive tackle. And now he flipped around a little bit, and that's fine. But you need at least one, big guy that's got some wheels, that has some strength and power. Aleem McNeil is the smaller size, the smaller end of a defensive tackle. And I would be looking for somebody that's a little bit bigger. So Christian Wilkins makes sense to me. Doubtful it's going to get done at this point. Not hearing anything coming out of Allen Park, obviously. next on the list is Danielle Hunter. So Danielle makes probably a little bit more sense to bring in over Wilkins only because of the cap considerations. You'll be able to bring in Danielle Hunter for probably $5 million less per season. And I think that's a big number when you're looking at all of the other players that need to get done. So at the end of the day, you're probably still going to get the same result. It's just coming from the end as opposed to the middle of the defense. Man, Gaviscon, I don't know if you've been reading my stuff on Twitter, but I put out a big Twitter article yesterday. Was it yesterday? And I think I put something out this morning. But I was talking about Amon-Ra and how it doesn't make sense to sign him. So if you want to check out my Twitter, at Will Rock Jr., I put out a very long article on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I also put out there just for fun. Brad Holmes said things could get crazy this draft. Now, just imagine for a minute, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. This is just me having fun. Goff is worth a lot right now. We trade for Goff and get 2 firsts and a third and a quarterback. I think that same deal could happen again. Like it's the makings of it are there. Goff's value is huge. Whether it's, a team like Atlanta, I doubt we would trade him to the Vikings. But there's a few teams around the league that could benefit from Goff's services. And you better believe that someone out there would pay 2 firsts and a third for Goff right now. And the story I kind of put out there was, all right, would Brad Holmes entertain trading Goff for 2 firsts and a third, a first this year and next year and a third this year. And then he takes all of those picks and moves up into the top 4, top 3 and gets either the quarterback of the future or an amazing, wide receiver in Marvin Harrison or somebody, which is not what I would do. But I kind of had that same discussion, about a month ago with Derek. And I said, I think I called him or sent him a text or something just out of the blue. And I said, and the Detroit Lions move up to take Marvin Harrison at number 4. And he's like, no. That's not happening. But anyway, I have fun with that kind of stuff. I just throw out some asinine projections just to have a little fun with it. But what do you think about that move? Like surface level, would you want to take those picks and totally be able to reform this team for the future and not have to pay some giant contract? And no, Hendon Hooker is not ready. He's not. He's barely played, a few snaps, during practice, and that's it. And that was only for six weeks, which a lot of it was during playoffs. So there wasn't a whole lot going on in those 3-4 weeks of practice. That was primarily the, first team guys getting all the reps. So I don't know. I just don't put anything past Brad Holmes, because if he thinks about the team and the franchise first, and somebody called him and said, hey, 2 firsts and a third for Goff right now, you got 2 minutes, something tells me he would pull the trigger. I think he would. I'm not saying I want it done, but nothing's happened yet, Justin. Nothing. I promise you, nothing's happened with Goff. And I believe that they love, it's the reverse trade with LA, bringing Matt Stafford back. That was another one I threw out a few weeks ago. It really upsets people on Facebook. They can't see the defining line of sarcasm, I guess. All right, so we'll keep moving down the list here. Man, Lions are in trouble with some of these spots. So Kendall Fuller is probably the next best cornerback available, and I'm going to have Adam Aniba on tomorrow night at 8 p.m. So there won't be an off the cuff tonight. We'll just call it this right now. But I'm going to have Adam Aniba on tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Washington Commanders writer and independent scout. So we're going to be talking about, scout perspectives, some draft stuff, and the Ben Johnson saga. So I want to get his take on Ben Johnson, what he would have thought about him as a head coach, and kind of, the thing that transpired there, all the I guess what you could call the shit talking back and forth, and people really, blaming Ben Johnson, for being a bad professional in the way that he canceled the meeting while they were in the air and that whole mess. So I figured things have kind of died down. Let's talk about it, but let's also have some, very high, conversation about scout perspectives and the draft and the combine and, what Adam and Neba thinks. And then, they're also looking at a pretty big rebuild in Washington. And I think that the Detroit Lions blueprint is one that is going to be followed. So we'll see what he has to say tomorrow night, 8 p.m. I did see the Jerry Jacobs post. I posted it on Twitter, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes after I saw, that he posted it. And yeah, it's a bit of a cryptic tweet. I haven't seen anything since, that he's talking about moving on in his life. And, whether or not that, he's going to be dumped, I don't know. But I have to say this. It made me also think that maybe there's another deal that is happening with the Lions. And the tweet almost came across to me like Brad Holmes or somebody called him and said, hey, just wanted to let you know that we're bringing this guy back and we're bringing this guy in. And, you're going to be third quarterback or third or fourth cornerback on the list. Sorry, but just wanted to be upfront with you. That's kind of how it came across to me. Like some other deal was getting done. And then we heard about Mosley coming back. So, and Mosley I'm not happy about at all. But we'll see what happens. So, yeah, George Vanderveen, good point. And I put that out there. I put that out there earlier too. When I put it on Twitter, I said, hey, just so you know, all of you golf haters that are now they've jumped in the bandwagon and acting like nothing ever happened because your boy Jared Goff took you to the NFC title game and had 2 elite seasons in a row, Super Bowl type caliber seasons in a row. Now everyone's like, oh, no, I love Jared Goff. Like, Jared Goff's my boy. We're cool. No, best quarterback, the Lions have ever had, blah, 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 blah. Right. The minute the guy throws an interception, everybody melts down. But I've been a Goff supporter since day one. I have. The last 2 seasons, that I've been on these platforms, I've been very high praise in speaking about Jared Goff. And I just felt that he needed a team around him. He didn't have a team in 21. He has a team now. And he's going to do a lot with it. So I'm excited to see, his deal get done, quite honestly. And maybe one doesn't get done. Maybe he's okay playing, for the amount that he's playing at right now, and they'll work on the deal next year. I think that would be a bad move on his part, but we'll see what happens. So Bryce Huff, look, another option for the Lions. He had a much better 2022 season than he did 2023. His consistency is what I worry about. But he does have an absurd pass rushing efficiency in 2022. It didn't really follow up in 23. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. He's been ranked, the top 20th edge rusher in the league now for the last 2 seasons. We definitely don't have a top 20 edge rusher in the league on this team right now that plays on the right side. So it would be nice to get somebody. Bryce Huff is going to cost probably about $15 to $17 million per year. Probably looking for a deal in between, 3 to 4 seasons, 50 to 65 million overall. And I don't think that that's a bad price to pay. Again, I haven't gone into all of the intricate details, his size, his arm length, his speed, all that stuff that you guys know that I love to look at. But I do believe that he would be a great option. Hot Rod says Golden Tate was Stafford's short passing crutch, St. Brown's Goff's. I believe that. You know what's funny about Golden Tate and St. Brown? Go watch their videos side by side. They run identically. If you were to put a Golden Tate jersey on St. Brown, they run identically. I don't know what it was about Golden Tate and just the way he runs. He's got like this little short leg, butt sticks out run to him, and they're identical. It's funny. Epinesa. Yeah, Jared, that's the guy that I'm looking for. Mike, the Marine guy, says, stick to your guns, Will Rock. 2 free agents at 1. 2 free agents for 1, cornerback and edge, 2 mid-tier level for 1 high. Exactly. You know what I like. Gaviscon says, Wilson on a minimum till Hooker is ready is like adding 2 top players for $25 million. Yeah, that's a great deal. I can't believe the Broncos decided to jump ship. And that's all Peyton. Sean Payton's deal, that he did not get along with Russell Wilson at all. It was toxic. So I think it'll be, quite funny to see that team completely melt down around Sean Payton. And in the whole time it was Sean Payton that was the problem and not Russell Wilson. Russell's a good dude, man. Like, I don't think that he was the biggest problem out there in Denver. He didn't have great seasons, but when you're playing in a toxic situation, you're not going to get the best play out of these guys. So DJ Reader is another guy that's been thrown around. I'm not high on DJ Reader. I know he's got some pretty good grades. I'm just not as high, only because, he's had some issues with injuries and, it just hasn't been consistently available. And I think if you're going to pay a guy $15 million a year, which is about what he's probably going to get, you got to be available. So I think for that reason, I would probably stay away from DJ Reader. That's just me, though. I don't know really what else to add to that. Let's see. Who else was on my list here? Need to find Epinesa in here. So you'd still have Chidobe Awuzie. I think that's how you say his first name. Chidobe Awuzie. You could probably snake him for 2 years, $10.5 million average a year. That's a deal I would do in a heartbeat. That's an instant upgrade over what we just had. I think that he could be a very good addition to this team. All right, Jared, you have a good night, my man. Off to the trustee on the board of trustees in the village where I live. All right, will you keep that village running smooth? Have a good night, Jared. Take care. Signed defensive ends Huff and Epinesa and cornerbacks Bunting and Apple. Yeah, I'd probably stay away from Apple. I mean, I think that he would be an upgrade over, some of the items that we had last season. But I would still want to get a better cornerback than Bunting. But I do like defensive ends Huff and Epinesa. I really do believe that Epinesa has got this untapped potential. And being that rotational guy that he has been, it's something that I want to see come alive, because I followed him throughout college and then the combine, and I was hoping that he was going to become a Detroit Lion. Didn't work out. But at least in the back end of the defense, like I said, you got the 27th ranked Awuzie, who's still available. You can more than likely get him for about a $10 million average per season. And I think it's well worth it. He doesn't have the best grades out there. But I think his tape doesn't lie. And he's coming off a torn ACL in 2022. So I would give him a pass for last year just based on the ACL. But at the same time, he would probably be my third cornerback option right now, only because you guys know how I like to stay away from bigger injuries. And that would be one. Good, guard option for the Lions is Robert Hunt, again from Miami. Miami's losing a lot of players, so still have some availability to strengthen this team. Robert Hunt is going to command a bag, though. I think that he's probably going to get, anywhere between $12 and $16 million per season. But I would much rather see the Lions pay a guy like this than a Jonah Jackson. I think the Jonah is going to get way overpaid. It was a bit of a surprise that the Dolphins, were going to end up getting rid of Hunt, though. That was the report that came out. And he's 6'6", 335 pounds. He got his start at tackle. He lined up on either side in his rookie season, and he held up pretty well. But then he found a home the past 3 seasons at right guard. and was a great fit in the team's zone rushing attack under Mike McDaniel. And that's why I like him, because the Lions use the zone scheme very often. It's our bread and butter on the offense. Whether they're doing, the zone scheme with Jahmyr Gibbs on the outside zone, or they're utilizing the zone scheme to get into play action passing situations, and that's leading to big time plays with St. Brown, or was Josh Reynolds, and Sam Laporta. So I'd like to see them be able to have a guard that can pull and run like Robert Hunt can do. So little expensive, but at the same time, you can never have a good enough offensive line. Yeah, George Vanderveen, I hear you, man. And that's why I'm not high in this Mosley deal, because Mosley, 2 ACLs, back-to-back seasons. I said it earlier and I'll say it again. The Lions made a big-time mistake letting Sterling Thomas, go and thinking that Mosley was going to start week 1. They knew that Mosley just had a cleanup procedure, and they thought that he was going to be able to get on the field in 2 weeks. Like, no. That was a 4-week minimum turned into 6 weeks. So I hope that this season they've learned something, and they're going to shelve, no matter what he says, they're going to put Mosley on the shelf and put him on injured reserve or whatever it is until at least week 5, and then let him come back, and then put him in a backup role. Don't put him on the number 1 wide receiver. Milk him, or kind of just wean him in a little bit. Just give him a little bit of action. Let him get his legs underneath him. By week 8 or 9, let the guy fly. Yeah, Braylon Dennis, the Bears cannot sign Hunter under any circumstance. I agree with you there. If they get Danielle Hunter, it's game over. Absolutely. What do you mean better the Hunt? Nobody's disrespecting the golf. Love the golf. Is Thomas on anybody's roster? He was with Arizona. Obviously, I haven't checked, recently, but he was with Arizona for the entire season. Yeah, Gaviscon. That's some good numbers by Snead, but I dare say that some of those numbers have also been replicated, by some of the other players out there. So next on the list is somebody's favorite, Chase Young. I think he's been talked about like 20 times in the past week. Chase Young, it's been said you can get him for a 1-year deal, $15 million. I don't know how true that is. Would I take a flyer on a Chase Young at 15 mil for 1 season? Probably. It's an interesting one we're going to have to follow. I don't think Chase fits, only because of his lack of effort, and it's been apparent. It's been called out. I just don't see that working with Dan Campbell. I think that they're going to butt heads quite a bit. Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, they want guys that, are all about football, not themselves. They're all about the game. And we'll see what happens here, but I wouldn't hedge my bets that Chase Young has a shot in the dark to make the team. Not really in the market for a top tier running back. So Saquon and Josh Jacobs or Derrick Henry, don't need them. But the next guard option, you do have Kevin Zeitler, Baltimore. Dude's a good guard. Obviously he kept Lamar Jackson clean, was able to move within the pocket, in their zone schemes. He was a street free agent in 2021 after he was a cap casualty from the New York Giants. And he has provided tremendous value to the Baltimore Ravens. He played more than 1,000 snaps every year. And he's been the stalwart, complete stalwart, going strong at 33 years old. He is our next Graham Glasgow. So he's earned a pass blocking grade above 80 for the 2nd consecutive season. And, look, we need good experience. We need good, strong, older dudes that can come in and hold it down. 2 years, $7.5 million average. I think that's exactly what Graham Glasgow is probably looking to get paid too. But why not bring them both in? Bring in Graham, bring in Kevin Zeitler, and then draft A couple of guards, guard tackles, guard tackle centers in the draft. I think that would be a great idea. Yeah, I don't think we have a shot in the dark at Powers Johnson. I don't think there's any way he slips out of the top 20. We'll see. There is a couple of guys that I like, though. So someone mentioned this name earlier, Frankie Louvu. So Louvu out of Carolina, great grades the last 3 seasons. As an outside linebacker, he's definitely available to rush the quarterback. I'm not sure how interested the Lions are going to be in another linebacker. That room is pretty thick. I mean, we do need one at least. But bringing in Frankie Louvu would almost mean that James Houston would be the odd man out, is what I would think, especially after the Lions just gave Jalen Reeves-Maybin a handsome ransom. So Louvu kind of burst onto the scene in 2021 and has continued to be one of the best pass rushing off-ball linebackers in the NFL. He had 43 pressures since 2022, which is ranked 4th at that position. And he coupled that with 9.5 sacks, ranking 1st over the last 2 seasons. Louvu has also amassed 62 defensive snaps against the run since 2022, which ranks 12th among linebackers over that same span. He does have a little bit of a limitation in coverage, though, but he is a menace coming forward and rushing the passer or shooting the gaps, and racks up tackles for loss. So interesting prospect. I don't think the price is wrong here, Bob. I think that if you're paying this guy, a 3-year deal, $28 million, half of it guaranteed, I think that you could probably get a deal done. But just about every guy on this list so far is costing between 7.5 to 10 to 15 million. And there's only so many of those that you can add. Zach Zinter, I think I would stay away from him because of the leg injury. George Vanderveen says Germ is clearly the next man up in our linebacker room. He's definitely going to have to get an expanded role this season, you would think, with that contract, right? Braylon Dennis, I'm not sold on Houston, if I'm being honest. Hey, I was sold on him the first season. I'm actually very surprised, that he played as well as he did. I think that injury sidelined him, last season pretty hard. And then he bulked up. So I want to see him come back to see what he has, but he needs to do what he does. Like, he needs to rush the passer. So if you're going to keep him around in a limited role, then he should be paid that way in a limited capacity. If he's in on 50% of the snaps, I think that's his best trait, is just rushing the passer, no matter where he's lined up on the field. Next guy you guys know I'm high on is Steven Nelson. I think that he is probably my second favorite option to come in as the next cornerback for the Detroit Lions. Even if that is a backup position, the third corner on the team. I think that he could definitely start. I think he could start at, the left cornerback position, possibly even the right cornerback position. And then you kick Cam Sutton over to left. But Steven Nelson, he's got great grades, has racked up a pretty incredible career. He was a great fit with the Houston Texans in back-to-back seasons, despite, a defensive shift from Lovie Smith to DeMeco Ryans. He's kind of found his way to be the odd man out. He has logged a very healthy dose of snaps in very varying, or different coverages. So he's well-versed in a lot of different schemes. He played with the Philadelphia Eagles, Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Kansas City Chiefs. So he has experience, like I said, in a lot of different schemes. Played 950 snaps or more for his 6th consecutive season. So availability is his best ability. He's best suited in off coverage. He has great lateral agility and the instincts to click and close. He's still popping up on tape in coverage and in run support. So probably a dime package, nickel package guy, off man, not the press man corner that we're looking for. The Lions definitely need to find a press man corner, but you can lock him down for probably $3 to $4 million a year, 2-year deal. I think you bring him in. So I would keep your eye on Steven Nelson. Kerry Crump says Kendall Fuller is a good low-hanging fruit signing for us as well. Yeah, spoke about Kendall Fuller just a few moments ago, but he's looking at a $15 million bag. So Sterling Thomas, let's look him up. Let's see where Sterling Thomas is. Let's see here. Well, first of all, 5'10", 194. Let's see here. All right. So Sterling Thomas is signed through 2025 with the Cardinals. So looks like he's not going anywhere at this point, which sucks, man. I think the Lions lost a great opportunity there. You know, hindsight's always 2020. Yeah, so Kerry, that's the cornerback that we waived or whatever around the 53 man, the one that I was hoping was going to stick around, but they decided to put Mosley up, and instead of putting him on some sort of a transition injury reserve designation. I can't remember the term right now. But anyway, because they didn't do that, they lost him. So interesting, as it may be, Lavonte David is available, according to PFF. And I don't know if that would be a good match in Detroit or not. I mean, all signs point to the fact that, he's a good dude, probably would fit the locker room. But this is a guy that's going to want to come in and really command, the respect. And speaking of respect, did you guys see that crap that came out about Caleb Williams? I think it was Adam Schefter that said until Caleb Williams allegedly, reportedly said that until the Bears players earn his respect, meaning that if Caleb Williams walks into that locker room, nobody has earned Caleb Williams' respect. And until they earn his respect, they cannot make eye contact with him. No direct eye contact. So that means that when you're walking up to Caleb Williams, you got to look down. What in the crap is this with this guy? Like, this guy is a basket case. If this is legit, if Adam or Ian, one of those two knuckleheads reported this, I read that today and I about fell out of my chair. Like, who does this guy think he is? Like, what age is he, living in? Because it's 2024. My goodness. I feel bad for whoever his wife's going to be. Yeah, he's a Looney Tune. Complete Looney Tune. Like, I think I try to live, where everyone, gets a little bit of respect, at least in the beginning. And you got to really screw it up to not have any respect from me. But anyway, so Lavonte David, many years in the league, he's coming up on 11, 12 seasons, I think, now in the league. Made $1.8 million last season. Hold on a sec. Yeah, about 1.8. Is that all he made? Anyway, pretty solid, obviously, as a run defense grade of 70, 65 plus in coverage for the 7th consecutive year. I mean, I could imagine seeing this guy mixed in with our linebackers. I think it would really elevate, and his experience would be well worth it. $5 million a year is about what you can get him. If you can get him on a 1-year deal, I think that shores up your locker room right there for the linebacker room. That's what I meant. Sorry. Tony Shea says, it's the new normal. You mean it's only 2024? It gets worse from here with prospects. I think this COVID crap, man, all these prospects coming out of this whole COVID transition, I think this virus has gone to their brain. Of course, Jadeveon Clowney is available. I'm not even going to talk about him. We're going to stay far away from him. You got Zadarius Smith, Cleveland Brown, former Cleveland Brown. You can pick him up on a 2-year deal worth about $12 million. He was traded from the Minnesota Vikings to the Browns this past offseason and revised his contract, converting it to a 1-year pact for $11.6 million. The price tag, he vastly outplayed it once again. So I want to say that he's nearing 10 seasons now, 11 seasons. So he's getting up there. But Zadarius Smith is definitely an option at 6'4", 275 pounds. Runs a 4.83 40. We know that the 40 is kind of meaningless, but good size. We know that this guy can be a good pass rusher. So again, there's options, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you, is there's options. And then last on my list for tonight, for available, the last few, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you have Xavier McKinney, which I'm pretty high on Xavier McKinney as a safety. I think that he, comes in and does a bang up job. Little expensive though. Josh Uche, he's available, and he is a Brad Holmes guy. Leonard Floyd, I would probably pass on. So Leonard Floyd was saying that he's only going to go where the money is, and that's not a Brad Holmes guy, in my opinion. So after that, I mean, you do have some other options. For tight end, you got Noah Fant. He's probably going to get about $8 million a year. I think that's a little too much for, a number 2. I'd rather see a rookie come in. Center Lloyd Cushenberry. So I don't know if Lloyd Cushenberry can play guard, but if he can, he is a Brad Holmes guy. They did have a pre-draft meeting, combine meeting, pre-draft meeting back when Lloyd Cushenberry was a rookie. So, again, going back to the Brad Holmes way, he's got to know these guys. So if he knows Lloyd Cushenberry at all, he will know where he fits and how he's going to play. But Lloyd is, one of the better centers in the league. And if he can play guard, this would be a great pickup. Not only do we have a center that can step in, but he knows that position very, very well. So whether it's right or left guard, whatever he's more dominant at, I think it would be a great option for the Lions. Not a whole lot of free agent offensive linemen, early. You got Derek's guy in here, Andrew Van Ginkel. He's expected to get anywhere between $6.5 and $8 million a year. Another good defensive line option is Sheldon Rankins. Not the greatest of grades. Obviously, he had a really great season to a degree. I mean, you look at his production alone, pretty productive year. 6'2", 305. He's a run gobbler. About $12 million a year. 10 to $12 million a year. And then you got Denico Autry. So that's going to round it out for me tonight. Talking about the, franchise tag deadline. It's done. Players are locked up. The Lions are kind of big losers right now, not being able to target any of the top tier free agents. So again, free agency doesn't start for another week. And when it starts, it's going to come hot and fast. I want to say last year we started to find out, what the Lions were going to do around 9-10 o'clock on the first day. And, of course, your own guys are getting re-signed first. I'm hoping that they get a lot of that done before free agency starts. Any of the guys that they're high on that they want to keep anyway. I hope Caleb goes undrafted. Yeah, that probably won't happen. Yeah, exactly, George. For college-educated guys, sometimes they say really stupid things. My question is, how much education are they really getting? They're football players, so we know that they don't typically go to school. They get all their stuff done for them mostly. Better the Hunt says Caleb is the poster child for a self-centered egomaniac that is acting like an immature person that has had everyone tell him he has no faults. Good luck, buddy. You know what? I hope that when he gets sacked for the first time, that someone just stares at him and takes that 15-yard penalty and just looks right in his eyes, right over top of him, and just, muddles the words. Do I have your respect now? I think that would be hilarious, honestly. That should be a T-shirt. Caleb on the ground, Aiden Hutchinson over top of him, asking him if he has his respect now. Justin G says, how hilarious would it be if the teams were like you want to play hardball? The NFL has collectively decided not to draft you, put the NIL leverage to bed, and let them realize this is give and take. I think I understand what you're saying there. King SJ says, hey, Will, just tuning in for the car ride home. Hey, glad to make your car ride home. I'm about to jump off here in just a moment. Thanks for joining in tonight. And George Vanderveen, maybe he really thinks that his doesn't stink. It just might not. Who knows? I don't know what the guy eats. Maybe he's so clean he doesn't even have to wipe. How about that? Poor son of a gun, man. He's going to get a welcome to the NFL moment, and he's not going to like it. So we've got some option guys. I've only gone through, and then ladies that are in tonight, I've only gone through about 60 of the top free agents. And I would say that there's plenty of good options here. And we haven't even gotten into the second tier. And you know what? I didn't even get to AJ Epinesa. So let me get into him real quick. I got to get into Epinesa. So I was a little miffed by this, that he was the PFF ranked 106th free agent in this class. 25 looks like a 25 and a third years old. He can be locked up for about $6.75 million a year. That is a steal. I think that, if he was playing more like 80% of the snaps and still had the same output, he would probably be, $12 million guy. And I think that would be commensurate to his production. So I really think that if you can get AJ for a 3-year deal, about $20 million, 3 years, about 12 of it guaranteed, I think that you're going to get a player that's going to grow. He's going to develop. And I think that he's going to end up being one of your biggest producers in short order. I really do. And the reason why is I think that he's good enough to be great. Maybe not elite, but I think that he's good enough to be great, and he's going to be undervalued by his opponent. I think that, any team that goes up against AJ Epinesa is going to try to target him. And on whatever team he, ends up on, he's probably going to get targeted. And that will be a bad choice. I've watched this kid play. I really love how he works. I would urge you to go watch some of his highlights. I just hope Brad Holmes feels the same way I do, because he was not on the list. I did not notice him on the last 6 years of intake meetings that Brad Holmes has, had with the Rams or the Lions. So, Epinesa, he's developed into a very solid rotational edge player. And like I said the other day, he was a rotational player because he was in a very crowded defensive line. They had Leonard Floyd, Oh gosh, who else did they have? Jackson and now I've got to look it up. Mind is fried right now. All these stats and numbers and players kind of get lost. So all right, you had. Well, that's not what I want to see. I just want to see the defense. Oh, here we go. Okay, so AJ Epinesa, I mean, he was in a pretty crowded room, and you had Greg Rousseau, left defensive end. You had Ed Oliver, left defensive tackle. DeQuan Jones, right defensive tackle. Leonard Floyd, right defensive end. Tre'Davious White was one of their corners. Jordan Poyer was a strong safety. Micah Hyde, free safety. And then you had AJ Epinesa behind Greg Rousseau. You had Shaq Lawson on the other side. Tim Settle and Poona Ford. And I want to say at one point, wasn't Von Miller in the mix here? Thought he was. Might have been. But at any rate, that's a pretty loaded defensive front. So he was second fiddle, and he was splitting snaps, with Greg Rousseau. I thought Snead was in the bag, dude. No, he's always been set to have the tag. I don't know who said he was in the bag. He's on tag and trade right now, so he's up to being traded, hopefully soon. Don't know who yet, but hopefully soon. We've expected the tag on Snead for days. I don't know if we could get AJ Epinesa on a prove it deal. I think he's proven himself. I think that you would probably overpay if you gave him a 1-year deal. I think that if you were to give him a 3-year deal that is just slightly elevated, above Alex Anzalone's deal, I think that you're getting a good deal. I mean, $6 million for AJ Epinesa. I think that would be a great deal, to be honest with you. Especially when you watch him play. I think he's a perfect fit. I really do. And anyway, so AJ Epinesa, he's developed to do a very solid rotational edge defender, and that's all you're asking from him. For him to have the stats that he did this last season and playing very minimally, like 50% of the snaps, he uses his straight line athleticism to really get upfield and quickly. He showed very solid proficiency on stunts and has a decent stop and start ability, even without the great lateral agility that he doesn't have. So he's not a guy that's going to beat you to the sideline, but he can get into the backfield, which is all that matters, is getting into the backfield, setting the edge. And if they were to utilize the scheme like they did, the last 6 or 7 games of the season, he's not going to have to worry about getting lateral because we're going to have box defenders in there and guys that are up in the box that can move laterally, like Brian Branch or even if he was up in the box quite a bit. So I think that he reads quarterbacks very well. He gets his hands up often into the passing lanes and knocks balls down. If I were to take a quick glance at some of his stats, let's take a quick peek. Or maybe not. Why is it not loading? No, I don't want to go there. All right, so AJ Epinesa last season ended up with 33 pressures, 7 sacks, 5 hits, 21 hurries, 6 batted passes. Looks like 6 tackles for loss and only 6 missed tackles. He had a higher missed tackle percentage than I think I would like to see, but we could attribute that to a lot of different things. You really just got to watch the tape. But overall, he didn't do terrible. His overall defensive grade 75.8, pass rush grade 75. Definitely needs some work in the tackling. But I will say this, the dude only played half the snaps. So you're grading a guy on, half of his production, 7 sacks. That's like James Houston coming in and he gets, 8 sacks, only playing 30% of the snaps. So if you're rotating an AJ Epinesa and a James Houston and, somebody else, and each one of these guys is still able to produce what they, have been able to produce. Just between a James Houston and an AJ Epinesa, you might get 16, 18, 20 sacks out of them, which would be huge for this team. And if you can add a guy like Christian Wilkins, who's going to throw in another 6, and then Aiden Hutchinson can get his, 10, I think this team is well on its way, to developing a good defense. And that's the other thing. We have one of the best defensive line coaches now. Bringing an AJ Epinesa into this team right now will give him the ability to learn and develop and grow even further. He's still young. Braylon Dennis says, go get AJ Huff, Van Ginkel for under 18 million. Yeah, I think it could be done. I think Van Ginkel's got some great stats from last year. He really did well in an expanded role. Definitely great eyes by Derek for catching this guy. I thought it was a joke at first, but as you watch Van Ginkel, move throughout the season and really show what he's able to do, the question is, can he do it again? This is the first year that he did it. So can he do it again? Can he be consistent? And I don't have the answer there, but at $8 million a year that he's expected to get, I think that's a pretty tough sell. But then again, it's all about knowing these guys. And if we know anything about Andrew Van Ginkel, I think that you're going to find out that he is a ball player. He loves to play football. And there's a lot of good write-ups on him now. If you ever find time to read up on him, pretty solid dude. Mike P says Epinesa had some injuries that kept him away from play, like a high ankle, some ribs in 2 of the last seasons. Maybe why he's not playing other than a rotational edge. That's a good point. Bills are your second favorite team. So when he was healthy, Mike P, he played pretty well, right? Pretty darn good guy to have on the edge in a rotational role. And it was pretty stuffy, a crowded room there on the defense. We also have Betts. So, that's a great point, Tracy. Thank you for throwing that in there. So if you have an AJ Epinesa, a Matthew Betts, and, one other guy, I think that, let's say it's Huff, I think that you're pretty set. I don't think that you need to go out and grab a Danielle Hunter at that point. And you're saving a ton of money. But I could only imagine if you have a Danielle Hunter, you're probably not going to need a Matthew Betts for anything other than depth. And that's a good problem to have, because I think that Betts, if he can stay healthy throughout this offseason and camp and everything else in preseason, he'll probably earn his way onto the team. It's going to be hard to keep him off of the team. All right. So I think that just about wraps it up for today. Again, we will not be doing off the cuff tonight. This is the last version I'm going to be able to do. I've got to get ready for tomorrow night's 8 p.m. showdown with Adam Aniba from Washington Commanders. We're going to be talking, pre-draft perspectives, scouting perspectives, the Ben Johnson saga, and just have some conversation about football. So I hope you guys join us tomorrow night at 8 p.m. He'll be on till 9 p.m. and then he's got to jump off and do his other show. And we'll see what perspective he has on, some of the players that he saw in the draft, talking about the Detroit Lions blueprint and everything else that, is going to be coming around here in free agency. And maybe we'll get his opinion on who's a great fit for a defensive end and why or why not, that you would pay big money for a defensive end or a defensive tackle if you're in the Lions position right now, which Washington's going through a rebuild. So, all right, you guys have been great. Thank you for joining me again tonight. And we'll be back tomorrow night, 8 p.m. right here on Rock On Detroit Lions. And if you haven't had a chance, please go check out Sports Spider. Some of you have been, you must be, because I'm noticing all the analytics now. We're getting a ton of clicks from Sports Spider, so I really appreciate it. Visit the site, check it out, get all your sports in one place. The link is in the description, and that's all. We'll sign off for Rock On Detroit Lions. You guys make it a great one. Take care. Bye-bye.